All right. So yesterday we were able to work with the static files, able to render the templates, and also to utilize URLs, whereby we are now able to navigate from one page to another by just clicking on the navigation bar, or rather the rings on the navigation bar. So what I did before this session began, I was able to work on the teachers page. Nothing much is happening here. We just have some images of the teachers that we have. And maybe as part of the assignment, today we are going to be looking at models, and we are not going to be working with the teachers page. So as part of your assignment, to just appreciate how models work, we would want this section to be dynamic. So just pay attention on the concepts of models, so that probably before tomorrow you can just write some few lines of code that will consume this data as dynamic. So we will be controlling this from the database. And what we need to capture, let us all right, we are going to see that what you need to pay attention on when you are designing a model or database schema. But just on a highlight, we will be focusing on an image, social media links, the name, and probably the subject that the teacher teaches, or whichever subject they are specialized in. So it's good to note the various fields that you'll be capturing. So probably tomorrow, let us hear your feedback on how you are able to fetch this from the database, so that in case we intend to delete the first teacher, maybe she has transferred and we no longer want her on our website, we can just go and either delete or update the status. Probably what we have here, we can talk of the active being the active, or rather the status being the active teachers. So if probably we set the first teacher to her status to be deactivated, or set the status from true to false, then we shouldn't see her on our website. All right, I hope you noted that assignment. All right, so the next thing I was able to do before this class, I think I removed, there was a navigation link here, jobs, I removed that, and I believe everything else is working as expected. So for blogs, we are going to work on that once I think it's after we are done with the models part. The next bit we'll be moving to is blogs. So we'll make this section a little bit beautiful. All right, so everything else is working well. I think the only thing that I probably need to do, I want to run more. So this should bear about us. I believe in the about us page, that's where we may need to, or rather that's where we have more information about us. So let me just navigate to index. Then let me just search for learn more. All right, so here in the href of the a tag, just have URL, have that. We just recommended that we can use some the single quotes, but remember, even if you use the double quotes, no harm. Then here we pass in about, and this about, we said it's being fetched from this name that we introduced here. All right, so once we do that, let's save, come back here, reload. Believe if we hover, all right, I think there was another run more. Okay, probably it was this one. All right, better still, let me check for that run more. Let me see. Okay, yeah, still not yet there. Okay, let me just search for this. After that, then I think we should have the learn more. All right, this is it. This is what we have been looking for, and we have just passing about. All right, so we may not be able to make everything beautiful. The goal is just to to just learn the skills that you should apply on your document to make it fully functional. For instance, we should not be having some hanging rings here that we are telling our website visitor to learn more, yet doesn't take them anywhere. So all these buttons and links should be worked on. Then so for this section, we are going to be fetching this from the database, nothing to worry about that. Then for the sign up, do we need to sign up today? All right, so we are not going to be working on this, but you can just be creative and see what information you'll be fetching from the user. But again, the concept on how to submit forms from a section like this, we are going to see that by when we will be covering blogs. So we will be seeing how a website visitor can submit a comment. So there will be a section on form submission. All right, I believe the rest of the sections, I think we are good. All right, also this one, after working on the blog section, then we can be able to fetch the first 3 blog articles and have them here. So this should not be static, should have dynamic content here. All right, so that's for the home page. I believe it's all good. So in today's session, I want us to focus on models. We'll be checking on models, and we are going to have everything here being fetched from the database. So basically at the moment, this is static content. In case we wanted to add a new course, we need to edit the source code of the course.h, or rather for the course template, and that shouldn't be the case. In a production environment, this needs to be fetched from the database, not from coming from the template itself. So this will give us the basis of how to work with models. So what do you need to know from Django models? Let me see. So basically, when we talk of models, anytime you hear of models, your mind should connect you to a database. You know, your mind should establish a database connection, because it's from the models that we get database tables. So if you think of having whatever content that we have here in a model, that's where database design begins, because you are supposed to look at what we have here and think of the fields that you are supposed to store in the database. It's not everything that you see here needs to be captured and stored in the database, seeing that we will establish a relationship between between subjects and courses. So it's for you as a developer to look at the information that is needed here, then come up with the various fields that needs to be captured. Then from that point, you can be able now to provide a form that will capture these data, store it somewhere, and it can be retrieved whenever it's needed. All right, so database models. I think just recall the topic we had an overview on, that is on data types, that is in Python. So we are also going to tag around those concepts here. They may not be directly related, but we are more or less going to be talking about data types for our database. Remember, when you are writing SQL queries, or rather creating SQL tables or database tables using the SQL queries, you have to mention the data types for the various fields that you are going to include in your tables. So we are still going to do the same here, and whenever I'm doing this training, I first of all suspend what we have here because it will limit us in knowing the different data types that we can have when working with models. So we are just going to look at a brief scenario that will give us quite a number of fields, more than what we will capture here. All right, so the models, basically database tables are defined in the models.py file of an application, of a Django application. Remember, this file is not present in the Django project, but once you create an application, then automatically there is a file that will be created called models.py file. All right, so here we are supposed to write the database definition code, and the way we do it in Django, we define classes. We define Python classes, and it's from these classes that once we do the migration, the classes will be converted to kind of MySQL queries, and they will be mapped to whichever database that we are working with. So currently, remember, we mentioned that we are using DB SQLite3, and we mentioned we have the potential of using quite a number of databases of choice, because this is the best to use in development, but when it comes to production, it's always recommended to use a server-based database. Otherwise, if you want to use this in production, somebody can easily download these database, and you see data. You need not expose your user data to the world. So data should be confidential, and especially when you probably store some user data. So the reason I'm saying this, the fact that I have these on production, I have used DB SQLite3. Let me see. If you have that and press download, SQLite3, you see what happens? It will download the data, and of course the database does not have any encryption. Anybody will just download these and query the database. So if you had your clients in there, then somebody will be able to see the information, which is not recommended at all. So it's not recommended for production. And the other exciting thing is that whichever database that you use, and let me just give you examples of the database that you can use without interfering with whichever code that we will be having in a models.py file. So if you use MySQL and PostgreSQL and now SQLite3, you are not going to be interfering with what we will be having in the models.py file. All you need to do when doing the change is just updating the database settings here to refer to the database that you want to switch to. Otherwise, the code in the models.py file remains the same. Where you might find yourself changing or interfering with the syntax here is when you probably think of connecting it to some other databases such as MongoDB. So I haven't interacted with the other databases, but at least for the 4 of them. All right, so let me just give you a scenario. We want to correct some user data. We want to design a model that will be capturing some user data. So here I want us to capture as many data from this user as possible, so that at least we can learn the various fields that we can use. So the way to define a model, we define a class. All right, then we give that class a name, and in this case I'm going to talk of user information. Let us call it that way. Then in here we need to, there is these models that we have inherited here, we have imported here from DjangoDB. So it's from here that we inherit models. So we have models, whatever we have imported here, dot model. All right, then we have some colon here, then press enter, and we will have this indentation. So from here we are supposed now to define the various fields that we are going to have in the database or in the table for this particular table, because this class will be converted to a table, this one. And working with database, one, you need a database, and it's from the database that you'll be creating tables. So the database in question is defined here. So basically the name of the database is SQLite3 for now. In case you are to configure this application to MySQL, PostgreSQL, one, you have to create a database and also create a user and give the user the necessary privilege on that DB. Then when you come to models, this is where now you create the database tables. So these tables will be mapped to whichever database that you'll have created here. All right, hope it's clear. So let's proceed and define the various table rows that we'll be having. And these tables or these rows will represent the various data types that we have when working with Django model. All right, so when fetching user information, we may want the first name. All right, first name, you can have the first name, and the way to call the data type for the first name. So first name, we expect that this should have strings. All right, should be probably a combination of strings, integers and all that, but basically for names we expect that names should be strings. So the way to refer to strings in Django, and it's for strings that have a limit. Remember, sometimes we do define limits in Django. So the way to define that, we have models dot, we have a field type called char field. All right, and whenever you use this, you have to define a max length. You need to include a max length in that field. For this case, let's talk about 30. And what happens when you have a char field? Let me just give you a quick illustration of that. Okay, all right, there is these so basically it's a field basically like this that is only meant to capture the username or the name of the user. We will be checking on another field. It will still be capturing text here, but then it will give us an option of moving to the next line. So in this field, if you are to press on enter, it tries to submit the page. So we may want to have a field that whenever you press on enter, it moves to the next line for you to be able to type in whatever stories that you may want to capture. All right, and we are going to appreciate that. So we can talk of user story. All right, so there is another field that let me just call it special. This will not take child field, since we are talking about a story and the story may take a number of lines. So this should fall under text field, and this we are not supposed to limit the number of the number of characters that move into this field. However, if you have that need to limit, then you can limit by using the max length attribute. Otherwise, it should not have a limit by default. All right, another thing, we may want to have a profile picture of this user. In this case, we can call it a profile pic. All right, and here we can have models. So we have a special field that holds images, and that field we have models.image field. All right, so we have an attribute that we need to add here. So we need to instruct our system, where do you upload these pictures? So once you capture the image of this user. Where do you want us to store it? So we need to have a prod2. We have that attribute. Then you need to define the location. So whichever location you define, it would automatically create a folder here. So we can just have profile. All right, and that will create a folder named profile in this location. All right, anything else that we may need to capture? All right, so we can capture date of birth, date of birth. All right, so let's have models dot. So to capture the date, we have the date, we have date field. All right, so we have the date field, and so that will give us a provision of us selecting the date when this user was born. Right, the next thing that we can capture the date of registration. All right, date of registration. So this is still a date, but then I want to show you an attribute that will automatically capture the date when this record will be added. So immediately you fill in all the other data, then this will automatically capture the current time. All right, so we still have date time field, or rather date field, and what we have something, we have an attribute called auto now add. We set that to true, and instead of just using the date field, let us make this a date time field that captures both the date and the time. All right, because at least we have already utilized the date field up here. So here, let me, so we have date time field, and we set auto now add to be true. So this, you do not need to input data for this. It will automatically capture the time that record will be saved. All right, so something else. What other thing can we capture from the user? Okay, all right, we can also capture the email of this user. Then let's talk of models. We have a special field that captures the email. Actually, it's the first one here. We have email field, and here also define the max length. Define the max length, and we can set it to say 50. So the max length that I'm using here, it's for you to just decide, to check on the practicality of the max length that you put here. So for the first field, we want to correct the first name of the user. So if at all you don't expect that there is no one in your country or in the world whose name you don't expect to go beyond 20 characters, then you can limit it at that. But then to make your table efficient and well optimized, don't limit this length so much, because it will be giving errors whenever a first name goes beyond those characters. So it will basically not save whatever you input if it goes beyond 30. So you have to put a lot into considerations before you put the max length here. And again, whatever we have here, the database will give errors if you try to save empty fields. All right, so it's for you to, if you feel like the user story is not mandatory, it's not a must to have the user story, then you can set these to null equals true. All right, we also have an attribute of blank that we can pass to instruct our database to ensure that it's not necessary to capture the user stories. Otherwise, if it's not there and you happen to have a user who doesn't have a user story or who doesn't want to share, then it will give errors if you try to save without passing in these attributes. All right. So anything else that we can search, we can. All right. So if at all probably it's a job application, we may also want to capture the CV of these user resume. Let's capture that. So we also have an option of files. We have file field. Let me see. We have file field here, and we also need to instruct our application where to store these fields. All right. So let's have a prod 2, and we can define another folder here that will be storing the user CVs, and that should be, let me just save it, CVs, nothing much. All right, any other piece of information that we may want to correct from the user, guys? Sorry. So just think around and share if at all you think there is any other piece of information that we can correct from a user. All right, so we may want to capture, for instance, if it's a job application, we may want to know their salary expectation, right? So salary. So for salary, one, we expect to have yes, Mike. Exactly. Sure. All right. Okay, that's okay. Okay. All right. So let us first of all capture the salary for now. So for salary, we expect that the salary should be a value, right? It should be a value. So we don't expect strings in here. So what we need to have, we can have models dot. So we have quite a number of options here. So one, we have the integer field. So this one will capture both positive and negative values, right? So it may be used when capturing salary, but we don't want somebody to corrupt our system by injecting negative values. At least let us just prevent them from injecting negative values. If at all they have to inject something, let them inject positive values for the salary. So one, you can use integer field, but it's only that it will capture even negative values. So it can be used, but then we want a field that will just capture positive values. Okay, so let me see. All right, so we have positive integer field. All right, so this one again, this will not capture decimals. All right, this will not capture decimals. I believe it will only capture positive positive integer values. Let me see if we can have some float values. Maybe let me see height. Models dot. Do we have a float field? All right, so float field. Remember, we talked about integer and float values. Integer being whole numbers, and float being decimals. So we can capture that as well. So for gender, if we talk of gender, so one, we can, there are different ways of achieving this. So one, we can capture it as a child field, right? We can capture it as a child field for the user to type in. And again, we said we are designing a database. We are designing database tables. So if you do this, you may end up with inconsistent data, which will now prompt you to, to come up with methods of making this data uniform. Because, for instance, if you have said some guys to for some field work, and they are supposed to correct this data, so probably Daniel will go for male, or rather, he will be using lowercase. All right. Then some other person will be using the first letter being an uppercase, another one will be using everything uppercase, everything lowercase. So you might end up with inconsistent data here, and you as a developer, you might now need to try and convert the user input to either lowercase, uppercase, and all that. But if you don't want all that drama, there is something else we can do here, and we can add a functionality whereby, like, if you are to fetch this data from, or rather, if you are to updating this data from the admin dashboard, you can have a drop down that selects the gender. If that happens, then at least we are sure that we will have consistent data. And again, if this data is being fetched from various sources, maybe we can have somebody working with it from the admin interface, another one is given access to a front end with the form that is supposed to correct this. You have to keep all these considerations in mind so that the data that you capture here is well optimized. Because for the gender, we just expect probably three gender, maybe male, female, and probably any other, so we do not want to have a male in capital letter, another in lowercase, and all that. All right, so the easiest approach to achieve that, we can have let's define something here, gender. Okay, let me just call it gender instance, and I'll have all right, I'll define that. Then in here I can capture male, then I have to pass in male here as well. Then here I can have female, I also have female here, and here I can have any other, or prefer not to say, they have all those options, but I just want to show you how to capture that. So what we have here, then we have models dot, let me see, I think that should be a child field. Then what we usually pass in here, we have choices. All right, and then here, this is where we pass in gender instance and also pass in the max length. All right, max length, probably let it be 30. All right, so in Django admin, this will give us a drop down whereby we are supposed to select any of these. All right, but as I mentioned, there are so many ways that you can achieve that. You can talk of it being child field without the choices. Then you'll need to write some other lines of code that will convert whatever input that comes in. Maybe if it comes in as uppercase, should convert that to something uniform. But this is a standard way. Mike, I hope you captured that, Mike. Okay, perfect. Then there is another field that I almost forgot. All right, so let me introduce something here. Active, or okay, or if we are registering okay, all right, so I'm trying to think of a field. Anyway, so let me just use this is active field to just indicate that probably this user has decided to subscribe to what we are selling to them or not. Maybe it's a political party, we are registering members, and after questioning them, they decided, like, they will give us the information, but they don't want to be our members. Anyway, that's just a scenario. So we have a special field that is going to tell us if this member is active or not. So the best way to capture that should be models dot, there is a Boolean field which we mentioned the Boolean data type when we were talking about the data types in Python. So we have this particular field, and it takes two values, true or false, no other value. So once you define it, you need to have in a default value. All right, so let us just set it to true. So it's for you it's for you to to decide the value that you want to set for that particular field. think of when working with blog articles. Like you'll be receiving comments on the various posts that you have. So you do not want to automatically publish whichever comment that comes in. So you can have such a field is active to automatically set it to false and only set it to true once you feel that uh, the comment is authentic and can be viewed by your website visitors. So that's a scenario whereby we can use this. All right. Any other data type, guys, that we have in mind? Or rather, any data that we can correct from this user that you feel may fall under a different field type? Okay, all right. So basically, I know we have quite a number of fields, but these are the common ones. If at all you'll be using anything different from this, then they yes, Mike. Yes, Mike. Sorry. Okay. The gender, yeah. Uh, oh, okay. The radio buttons, you mean? Okay, all right. So we may introduce we may have an example of that on the front end, but basically you'll be capturing that data just like any other, because what happens with the radio buttons is that only one of the fields can be active, right? So if you have the male, female, and any other, so if you select male and you had previously selected female, it will move to the male, right? So when submitting that form, it will capture the active radio button. So if you had to do that, actually you will have simplified the stress of maybe a user filling in male in lowercase, another in uppercase, and all that. So you'll have solved the inconsistency. So when it comes to the Django admin, I'm not sure if we have such a provision for the radio buttons. But then we said that there is nothing impossible under the moon or under the sun. We can try to check. Probably it's there. But the ideal one, the one that exists, is the drop down. So for the radio button, we can have that on the front end, where the user is interacting with your web pages. Maybe we have a form that captures all this information. All right, maybe to add on the mini projects. This is not really a mini project, but to add on that, I'll be sharing this code with you. It's for you to create a model, then create a form, not from the admin page. Create a form that will be able to capture this data and save it to the database. So it will be good for your practice, and especially when dealing with what? When dealing with files. So form submission with files, there is something special that we do pass in through. So just take up the challenge and try to capture this data. So think of it as you are developing an application to be somebody is saying something. Yes, Moses. Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 You want his age to probably display that on the front end. Mm-hmm. 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 All right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So I think I captured your question, and if I don't answer your question well, please just let us know. So if, for instance, we want to uh, we have a web page that we want to display to this user that, hey, you are 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, and we are designing that database. So for instance, if we think of storing the age of the user to our database, maybe just having, let me just have it here, age, and have it as models dot we said should be a positive integer. We have that. So what we, okay, for instance, I'm 15 years old, so if I set 15 years old here, what will happen next year? Will that age increase? So it will still, that's a static value, it will remain 15. So if you want to capture the age, the actual age of this user, and display that in the front end, I would still recommend we use the age. Then in the templates we have some what do we call them? We call them okay, we basically have some a way of calculating the age of this user. All right, we have the date of birth. Then from the template there we have a way of calculating the age of this user based on the current date that we are in and the date of birth. I think we are going to see that. Let me see where we are going to capture such a concept. Let me see. All right, I think we are going to capture that in we're gonna see it somewhere, probably when talking about okay, let me see it here. We're going to see that where, okay, all right, we may not find that, but we are going to integrate it on one of these, either when working with subjects or blogs. So you're basically able to calculate, to do calculations on the browser. So from date of birth, capture the current age, then get the difference. So you do not need to store that data in the database, because it will not be changing as you grow old, Moses. All right. So I was saying that just give yourself a challenge, because these are not the model, these are not the model fields that we are going to use. What we want to be, what we want to capture are these courses and subjects. So just take up the challenge, utilize this code, because I'll be deleting it from here. So you can use ChatGPT to help you generate a front end with these that is able to capture these fields. All right. So once you capture this, be able to submit that from the front end, and of course from the back end as well. By that, I'm sure you have learned a number of you have gained some skills, right? So just have that. And the reason why I just took the user information, I think it has given us a number of fields that we are able to utilize. So it will be basically easy for us when now we are sorry, when now we are working with the courses here and the subjects. All right. So anyone with a question at the, up to that point? Guys, anyone with a question? All right, maybe just to mention, the other thing you need to appreciate in a database is that we will be having relationships. All right, not relationship amongst ourselves, but model relationships. For instance, this we may find these in some advanced concepts. Maybe we are not going to cover that here, but just to mention that. But about relationships, we are going to be working with model relationships shortly. For instance, we have user information model here, and I'm sure you are aware that Django already has a user model created. It has a model that is supposed to capture the username, the email, first name, last name, and which other information. We are going to be seeing that, but we have already model that is supposed to capture some of these information. All right, so if you are to create, say, such an application that we are building here, and the user requires an account to log in. All right, so some of these fields, for instance, the first name, you do not need to capture this in the user information. This should have been captured in the user model. All right, then something like the email, we do not need the email here because it will be captured in the user model. So all you need to do is to link the user model and the model that we have created here, so that we have a relationship between the two models, right? And maybe this is the right time that maybe I can mention something retro about the models that we have. So okay, all right, so let me just do some comments here and give you some examples that we can make use of. Okay, all right, so I'm not sure if I'll be confusing you, but then we have, I mentioned we have the user model, right? It's there by default. It's not for us to create that model. It has been created already, but if you decide to complicate things, you can create one for yourself. But we want to make things simple for us, and the way to do that, using that user model, we expect that each and every user, based on the username and the email, will have one account. All right, we do not expect Daniel to have two accounts with the same username and the same email. All right, that has been taken care of there. Then also for this user information, we need to capture the user information of each and every user who has already been captured in the user model, and we want a user to exist only once. We don't want to capture probably my information or any other person's information twice. All right, so that means that each and every account in the user model will be related to only one instance in the user information model. All right, so in that case, we use a relationship we call one-to-one field. All right, one-to-one field. So these are basically model relationships. All right, model relationships. So that simply tells us, okay, let me just have that. All right, so that simply tells us that each and every user in the user model will be related to just one record of the user information. All right, then we can also have a scenario. We can also have a scenario that we're having at the moment. We will be having, let me show you, we will be having we will be working with courses. We will also be having subjects here, and the relationship that we are going to use, so we will be having a list of subjects, and we also have a list of courses. So each and every course here can belong to, for instance, let me just read, okay, we have the subject listed here, and we want to, let me see, okay, we have the web design course here, and we can relate it to any one of these. All right, and again, if we don't restrict, we can have this particular course here related to web design. Then we can also introduce another the same course and related to another subject without any restrictions, unless you restrict that you only require to have one course related to one subject. But then that's not what we want. We want it to be let me just use the word open open, whereby I can relate any course with any subject here. All right. So in that case, we will refer that to a one-to-many relationship, whereby each and every subject can relate to or can be connected to as many courses as possible. But then it has to be in each and every entry we refer to one course. All right. Well then, so that's a one-to-many field, and we are going to see it in action shortly. So the other relationship, which happens to be okay, so this is let me capture that. All right. So this should be a many to, oh sorry, not many to many. That should be a one-to-many relationship. One-to-many relationship. All right. The other relationship that we can talk about is think of a blog website. Let me see what I can have here. Let me see. We have blogs here. So think of a blog website whereby a single article can have let me see. So a single article here can have several tags. All right. So we want to design our models whereby this single article can have multiple tags. All right. So such kind of a relationship, we are going to consider it as a many-to-many relationship, because for instance, the first article here that we have can have, say, these four tags. All right. Then the second article can have exactly the four tags that we have here, and basically all the tags can have the four. Another one can have three of these. Another one can just have one, or just have one of what we have here and different others. So that again gives us some freedom, whereby we are able to relate articles and the various tags that we have here. We are also going to see that in action. All right. So the best way is to just see live examples as we work on them. This is a many-to-many relationship. We just mentioned that. So we are going to be looking at it. Probably what we will not look at it in this training is a one-to-one field. But then I've already mentioned that we can utilize the user model and link the user model and the user information model. All right. I'm not sure if I should add that as a challenge to you guys. All right, we are going to mention that once we are done with the training, so that at least we can be able to appreciate how to work with the user model and how to utilize such a model. All right, so that is that. Let me share these as well. All right, so we'll be seeing that in action. All right, so what we need to do here is that so for now I'll be deleting what we have here, or I can just comment it, so that maybe if I push it on GitHub, you guys can be able to refer to it. All right, so it's now time to create the models based on what we have here, right? And another thing we need to pay attention on is that as we are going to be naming our models, remember, don't name a model the same name you have with the views. For instance, if you named a view courses, then you shouldn't have a model named the same. All right. So we are going to be creating models for these two. We basically have two tables. Let us see them as tables, and let us start with subjects. All right. And we already mentioned to create a model, you start with the class, then we give it a name. I want to give this one a name. All right, let me check on the views. Do we have subjects? We don't. All right, so let me have it as subjects. All right, then we said we're going to have models dot model. All right, okay, let me just pass that. Right, then we're also going to have courses here. Okay, then let's just have a class. If we talk of courses, I think I have a view named courses here. Okay, right, let me think of a model name that I can use. Okay, all right. So this is courses. All right, so let me just name it course without the s. All right, then we have models dot model. All right, generated so many lines. All right, so the next thing that we need to to appreciate is the data that we have to capture. All right, so one for the subject. For the subject, we will be capturing one. We can see there is an image in the background, so we will be capturing the image. Then we will also capture this name here. Could be the title or the name of that subject, and then we have this number here. All right, so this might confuse you, but once you look at some practical examples, you will see that for now we do not need to capture the number of courses here, because again, just note that for us to be able to come up with how many courses down here falls under the web design subject, we need to have the courses, so that we count the courses to be able to get this value. So that is not a value that we can store to our DB, because immediately we add a new course, then this value should change. It should change dynamically. It's not a static figure. All right, so we do not need to capture this when designing our table, our subject table. All right, so we will be capturing this name and the image. All right, so let's come here and let me just have name. So this is the name of the subject, and we have models dot remember, we are just capturing some text here, some characters, so we are going to have child field. All right, and as usual, never forget to mention the max length. So for the max length, let us have 50. That's fair enough. All right, and maybe let us just make our the names that we use here, or rather the field names, easy to understand. So this one, you can name it subject name. I think that should be good enough. Then we also have an image here, so we can utilize subject image. All right, and remember the field that we use to capture the image. So we have image field, and another thing that you should never forget when dealing with images, we have upload to. All right, then we can talk of where do we want to upload that. All right, let me call it subject images. All right, so this is just any name that you mention, it will create that image, or rather that directory here. Then I think that's it for the subjects. All right, so let us move to the courses. I'm hoping I'm not moving so fast, guys. Are we together? Are we together, guys? Okay, perfect. All right, thank you for the confirmation. All right, so we have courses here. So the next thing that we need to check is the data that we need to capture for the courses. So one of them, we are in agreement that we have an image. So let's capture the course image. All right, and we'll be having models dot image field, and we can still upload in the same folder. We don't need to make our directory so noisy. And again, once the images have been uploaded to this folder, we don't necessarily need to know which image belongs to which course. The system will do that for us. So once you upload an image here, the system will give it some ID, so that whenever we call these courses, the course will know the name that was given to that image. Even if you upload an image with the same name twice, it will be given a unique name that you associated with the particular course that we are referring to in that instance. All right, so we have the course image, right? Then the next thing, we have the course name here. We have the course name. We'll be talking of models dot that's a char field as well. Remember to mention the max length. Do we expect it to go above 100? Let's have 100 there, right? Okay, all right. Then the next thing that we have, we want to capture the price. Okay, we are not going to capture all these fields, because they might make our project complicated, and we will not be able to cover that within the timelines that we have. So we are going to leave out this particular field. We can capture these, and we are also going to leave this one out. All right, so let's capture the price, the course price. We have models dot so for the price, so one, we need to kind of argue out. So for now, let us just work with positive integers, right? And not really consider about the decimal. So we are going to work with positive integer field. That's good enough. But on the other end, somebody might think of using integer fields, float fields, and all that. So in my case, I'll use the cost price as a positive integer, right? Then something else that I need to capture, I can capture this duration, right? Let me capture the course duration. All right, and there is a special field that I didn't mention. There is a special field called duration field. We can also consume that. And so duration, it's about timelines. So we can talk about the default, so that at least the default will give us the conventional way that we are supposed to capture that. All right, so that should be we can use time delta. All right, let me just import it here from date time. Import time delta. So I want to utilize that here. Time delta. So here you mention the hours, and the hours we can talk of maybe the course is 5 hours. Then the minutes as well, we can talk of 20 minutes. Of course, we have some other attributes here that we may not need to capture, the microseconds, the milliseconds, and all that. All right. Okay. All right. That should be okay. All right. So we want to optimize this system so that if, for instance, we have an administrator who is managing our courses, and we see the first administrator has used the $sign on the courses. So the question would be, when designing the database, do we need to, do we have a provision whereby the user will enter maybe 99 Kenya shillings using the KSH, $99? So something you need to note, we do not need to capture this either the $sign or the Kenya shilling or whichever currency. So if at all we expect to be working with dollars, then we can just add a help text, so that to assist whoever is updating the courses, not to update the courses in Kenya shillings or any other currency. All right. So for the course price, or rather not just for the course price, you can guide the user on just giving them a guideline. For instance, for the cost price, because it gives us a very nice opportunity of us to utilize that, we can have the help text. There is something we call the help text, and what happens with this, we advise them. So we can have enter price in dollars. All right, so this one, when you're working with the admin, from the admin, it will include this text just below this field. So it's for you to to just keep an eye on such pieces of information, so that you can have some consistent data. Because if at all you are talking about dollars and we have 99, so if somebody was to think of it being Kenya shilling, then that would be it would be either a small value or a bigger value, depending on whether you have converted the value. So just keep it consistent, use dollars. Then for this dollar symbol here, we can embed that on the template. So this should not be stored on the database. All right, so also for all these other fields, in case you feel like the user might end up being confused on what to use, then you can be sure to add a help text on each of these fields. So probably even for the image, we can advise them that hey, you need to upload an image. Image size should be say 100 by 100. Such kind of information you need to pass to the user. All right. So I think we have captured all the data that we will be working with on this training. So the question is, how so far, how do we relate a course and a subject? Are they related in any way? All right, so for now, if you create these data, or rather do the migration as we have here, then these two don't have any relationship, but we want them to be related, because if you see these, we have these 100 courses. We want these to come from the courses here, because each and every course will relate to a subject here, and we will be counting how many courses are under web design subject, how many courses are developed under the development subject. So we are going to introduce a relationship here. It's just recommended that we have the relationship as the first entry, but if you just put it anywhere, it will still work. So for this case, let me have it there. And what we have, we can't just give it a name, so let me just call it course subject. All right, and this will be models dot. So in this case, we are going to use a foreign key, and we said is that we can have even two courses. Say, let me just call it, say Django for beginners course, and related to different subjects here. We are going to see that practically. So we have foreign key. Then in here, we need to pass in the name of whichever model that we want to associate it with this. So that should be subjects. And in here, we need to advise our application what happens if a certain subject was deleted. Right? So we need to pass in on delete. We usually have a number of choices here, but what we mentioned is that it's popular. We mentioned that on delete models.cascade. So what that means is that if we delete a certain subject here, then the course related to that should be deleted as well. All right. So another assignment is to check on other options that we use here, and not just checking. Try to do it practically. All right. So just note it somewhere. Try to check on other options that we have here on delete. We have, I think, 3 of them. So just take note of them and try to check if they work and how they work, and basically how those models behave should you delete say a subject. All right, then there is an attribute here that we may mention, we may or not mention it, but it's very crucial, and we are going to see how it will come in. Otherwise, for now, we can just revert at that. But then I will be mentioning a related name here, and I will be passing in let me just call it subject. All right, let me just call it not subject. Okay, let me just call it course. It's related to course. All right. So I think everything else looks good. We are going to be adding some other lines of code down here, but then that will come in after we start mapping it on the admin page. All right, so I think our database design is complete, unless anyone has a question. Any question up to that point, guys? All right, if no question, then we can, okay, we already have a warning here. We are going to look at that. So for you to work with images, basically what it's saying that we have mentioned an image field, and we have a module that we need to use so that we can work with that. So that module, it's called pillow, and we are given a command to install it here. We'll be doing that now. So just stop the server from running, and let me clear the screen. So I'll be having pip install pillow. All right, so without that module, then the application will not work. All right, so if we start our server again, I believe you will not see that error. All right, so the error is gone. So after creating your models, and you are contented with what you have created, so all you need to do is, let us stop the server. So there is what we call migration. All right, so we are going to be doing migration. So basically migration is doing the migration will map these classes, convert them to SQL queries, and create these tables. All right, so we have Python manager.py, then we have this command make migrations. All right, just do that. So what this one does is that these two tables that we had created, they are migrated, and the SQL structures defined. So the next thing, we will be migrating them, and by migrating them, that's where now the database destination schema will be mapped to the database. All right, so there is a command that we used to make migrations. All right, so once we do that, so the next thing that we need to do is migrate. All right, let's see, everything moves. So all the models have been migrated. We had quite a number of migrations in place, but for now, for us we just created the two, and we see quite a number of migrations being applied here. All right, so the command used to do that, we have that, migrate. All right, so at the moment, if we try to query our DB to see if we have these tables, then we can be sure to get these tables in there. All right, we are not going to do that for now. Before we close this session, let us at least do something. And so whatever I want us to achieve before we call it a day, I want us to be able to see the form that is supposed to capture this data. I think once we achieve that, we will be happy to close the day. All right, so we have created the database. The next thing is that we need a super admin who will be operating our Django admin dashboard. All right, and we haven't created a login form yet. So for this user, we create them from the terminal, and this is the way to do that. Python manage.py, we have create super user. All right. So in my case, I'll leave them. So basically, the system checks on the current user of your machine. It gives you an option. So if you are contented with that, just press enter. Otherwise, enter the new name that you want to use there. All right. So for the email, for now, I'll leave it blank. For the password, let me just use a simple password. Then have it again. All right. Then confirm, because the password I used did not meet the minimum expectation. All right, so that's how to create a super user. This is a super user, a super admin, the one who will have the access to the admin dashboard first. All right, then if we check on there is these URLs, then there is this admin. Okay, so using that admin, we are able to access the admin dashboard. All right, so the server is not running. Let me restart the server. Okay, all right. So by the way, there are some warnings that you have been seeing here. So once you do the migration, those warnings have disappeared. Say they were talking about you have, I think, 18 or something and migrated something. There was such a warning, and if you check, it's no longer there. So all right, so let's navigate to the admin dashboard. So interesting thing, we didn't have this template with us. Django has done it for us. Then just input your user password there, your username and the user password, and here we are. All right, so we want to make whatever models that we have created available on the admin dashboard. All right, so Django, basically Django has made our work easier, because if at all you are using other frameworks, think of Node.js, you have to do this on your own. All right, so you need to be a very good front-end developer to be able to achieve a fully functional admin interface. And again, there is so much that Django has done for us. We don't need to worry about users and groups. We are going to see what they have helped us achieve. All right, so we want to make our models available here so that we can be able to do the CRUD operations of a database. We want to be able to create, we want to be able to read the data, to update, and also delete the records that are there. All right, so the approach to that, we have these models. Then we need to move into the admin.py file. All right, so in here we need to import the models. All right, so we are going to talk about from all models. So we talk about a dot all models import. We have course and subject. All right, so we have these two models that we have created here, so we need to import them to the admin.py file. All right, so once we do that, are we able to see them here? Not yet, as you can see. All right, so for you to see the courses table or the courses model, we need to invoke something we have here, admin.site.register. Then we have, let me have courses. Okay, let me just all right, so I'll have course here, and I'll have subjects. All right, so you just need to do that, and that thing will do us the rest of the magic. Just reload, then we have what we have here. We have so basically we have this home that we have here. So that's the name of our application. Remember, we named our application home. That's why we have it here. So if we create some other multiple applications, then we will be able to, and that is, if we create multiple applications, create the models and map them on this dashboard, then we will have them listed here. So for instance, we have home, we will have blog, and the models related to blog listed here. So here, if you can see, we already have some buttons, some action buttons. One we can add, and so this is what we have designed. We have designed for courses. We can be able to select a course subject. We can also be able to select an image. It will go directly to my system to try and find an image. Sorry. Oh, I updated course name to be an image. Wow, I didn't see that course name. All right, I think I made a mistake here. So this should not be a file name. I'm really sorry about that. I hope you are seeing. So course name shouldn't give us a prompt to upload a file. So it should be okay. It should be child field. All right. So let's update that. All right. Let me have a max length of all right, course name. Let me have it at 50. I think it was at 100. Let me have it at 100. All right, so let me come here, stop the server, and do the migration again. So basically, every time you make any updates on your model, you need to do the migration again. All right, so anyway, it's a good opportunity for us to see that, so that in your case, if you happen to do that, you should not start wondering why the change is not reflecting. So you need to do the migration. So python manage.py make migration, right? Then finally we migrate. All right, that should do the magic. Then let's reload, or rather let's restart our server. Let's reload this. All right, and this is what we have. All right, remember we added a help text and a cost price. This is what we have as well, and we also have the duration here. Please be able to see that. Then same thing with subjects. So we see that subjects has added an S here. We will try to control that. Then we will also try to control course subject. We may want to have course, then a space subject, course space image, and all that. We are going to see how to achieve those functionalities tomorrow. Then let me see subjects. You can add a subject by just giving a name and an image. So once you click on that, it should open a location where you can fetch that image. Let me just show you how to go about it. Let me just fetch that, open, and it will attach. So once you input a subject name, then it will do the rest. So tomorrow we are going to pick it up from that point to see how to add subjects, how to delete, and how to carry out all the other operations. All right, and that will mark the end of today's session, unless anyone has a question or a comment.